My name's Katrina Ballamare. I'm the Executive Director of Family Partnership Center, which is the organization that's benefiting from tonight's event. And as you can tell, we have a packed crowd, and we're very excited. We are kind of all walking around like penguins to get through here, but we're really glad that all of you can make it. Some thank yous I know Veronica shared earlier, but I don't think that there's anybody in here that I can't thank for being a part of this event and making it very special. So if you'll just take this as a big hug from me to all of you to say thank you for being here, for people that donated the food, from them donating this room for us. This is a 100% proceeds go to the center kind of event, which never happens. So very exciting. So a huge thank you to Carol out there. She's actually donated all the wine for the wine tasting. They've donated this room. Many of the people in this room have given donations for the food and just everything you see here. All the raffle items are donated. If you haven't gotten into a raffle yet, we do have Julie. Julie, wave your hand back there. Beautiful in pink. She's amazing. I have to thank Julie and also Veronica back there. I like the color you're wearing. And both of them were the co-chairs for this event, so please say thank you to them, as well as... What an adoring crowd. You guys are great. So basically, I just want to tell you a little bit about Family Partnership Center. Some of you guys have maybe never heard of us. We've actually been around for 20 years. We were established through the National Exchange Club as one of, I think, 80 child abuse prevention centers nationally, and one in 6 in Florida. And basically what we do is we do parenting education and parenting support to help strengthen families and prevent child abuse. And we help about 1,200 families every year. And we do that through in-home visiting, through workshops, through classes, anything we can to help support parents in that really tough role. Yeah. So, in coming up here, I try to think of what would really be meaningful for you to know, and I think most people would rather hear stories than me just go on and on and on about statistics. But one story that happened recently that's touched my heart was a mom mom and dad, who are together. They have 4 children. They are way below the poverty level. We were able to help them with some items this year, as well as backpacks for their kids, and some just wonderful things. And what was happening in their house is that there was a lot of screaming, a lot of yelling, a lot of hitting. They probably, maybe even up to 20 times a day, a child would get a spanking. And it was just a difficult environment to live in. And their oldest child is a young boy. He's 9 years old, and was actually reacting to that behavior and yelling back and just trying to get a sense of control and understanding what was happening. And we worked with this family for several months, and we recently had a party in the park where we invited a bunch of parents to have one of our programs, and this young boy came running up to the parenting educator. Her name is Lizzie, after we've been working with this family for a long time, and started to cry and hugged her. And he said, "Thank you so much. My mom doesn't scream at me anymore." And that is so powerful. We don't always think about the effect of our words and how meaningful it is to have support. And this family is now learning how to talk to their children, relate to their children in positive ways, and the impact that's going to have for their 4 children. And now I believe the mother's pregnant. We talked about child spacing too, but basically just the impact that we're making every day in these lives. And there's stories from every end of the spectrum, from just a regular mom and dad that says, I've got a child with a special need, and I'm not sure if I'm doing this right or how to deal with this behavior, to any of us really that just kind of struggle through that and would like some support, all the way up to some families who have been through the Child Protective Services. So we're here as a resource for families, and we do it because of donations and generous gifts from people. And this event is a huge turnout, and we're so grateful that all of you are here. And I would like, at your tables, you're going to see a card. that looks like this. And I know many of you already have given donations at the door. And I would like every single person to fill one of these out. And I know that not everybody has resources to give a lot. And if you don't have resources to donate today, please turn it over and write an encouraging note to our staff. So I'd like everybody just to put something on this page. One of the things that we're running right now is not running really, but a challenge that we're trying to achieve is getting all of the families off of our wait list by having consistent monthly support. Being in a nonprofit, often we have funding sources that come through at different times of the year. Sometimes it's always in December, or we may have a contract that starts in October, and that means that it's hard to give consistent support to families. So what we'd like you to do is consider doing a monthly donation. And this is secure through our website, and we'll walk around and pick up these forms so that you know that that's not being kind of distributed. But if you'd put your credit card information on here, we can do a monthly gift. You can also do a one-time gift. If you'd like to put a check or cash in here, that would be wonderful too. But what it's going to do, it's going to help us to make sure that these families, the 15 that we have on the wait list right now, representing 33 children, some of them have been on there for 2 months looking for services. That means is that we can tell somebody when they call us, I know you're in crisis, I know you're hurting, and we can come out right away. So I just ask all of you to consider, if you can give a gift, that's wonderful. If you can get a note of encouragement, that's wonderful too. So just ask all of you to consider that and fill out those cards, and we'll have some of our board members walk around collecting those. And I just really appreciate that. Also, if Steve Adams could wave his hand back there, I don't know if everybody's had a chance to meet our guest tonight. He is just a phenomenal man. He's actually our board chair, and we've missed him over the past 6 months, and we're so excited to hear what he has to say to us tonight. And we're going to bring him up in just a few minutes because you do still have a little bit of time to mingle and talk. I want to give you an opportunity to do that and also to fill out these cards. And also, the raffles, just so you know which ones we have going on, there's a 50-50. Ann over there, those are the red ones. And then we got Julie back there again, her beautiful pink. I love that color. And she's doing all of the raffles for the different items. So if you have items on your table as well as in that back table over there, those tickets are going to a chance auction. We're going to do that at the very end of the evening. You have to be present to win, but if you know somebody here, give them your tickets and they'll hold it for you. We kind of work that out. So please see them. We also have one more drawing I'm not sure as many people are familiar with, but it's for your information or business card. There's a raffle over on the wine table, and we're going to draw out of that for some prizes tonight too, but you'll be added to our mailing list, so make sure you want that. So there's somebody very special here, and it's not Steve. Even though he is the star of the show. There's somebody that has made this possible for him, and it's been an inspiration to me, and I know a lot of people here. And she's probably going to be very embarrassed, but I'd like to ask Diane to come up here, please. Diane is Steve's lovely wife.
Thank you. Oh, that is so gorgeous and lovely. Thank you. Oh my goodness. Oh God, I was not prepared. This is not fair.
I know. I love it.
Wow. Well, I'm overwhelmed. Thank you. Thank you. What can I say? I am so proud and so inspired by Steve. It's been an amazing 6 months. He is the love of my life, and I could not imagine him not doing this. I had absolute confidence in him, and I knew that we would have that amazing picture. I love you. I thank you all for being here and supporting him. I mean, so many people that I have so many things to say, but from my heart, thank you.
And I think Steve would be the first to say that Diane is amazing, and she's a wonderful support to him and the love of his life, and we're so blessed to have her here with us tonight. The other thing I wanted to mention as part of Steve's trip or trail or trial was that he did it also as a fundraiser for Family Partnership Center, where he asked people to sponsor his walk for $1 a mile, quarter mile, nickel a mile, whatever they could. And he's raised over $4,000 for the center in doing that. And so every step he took, not being a hiker, was very difficult, but he did it not only for selfish reasons of wanting to live his dream and express to us how interesting and exciting that was, but he knew that every step was meaningful for families in our community. So I'm very thankful for him. I'd like to bring him up here with no further ado. Let's bring up Steve.
This was a very, very, very self-indulgent thing, and I'd quickly like to thank everybody who supported me, who supported FBC. Obviously, Veronica and Julie for organising this. This was quite a shock to me because they said they were going to do this when I still had about 600 miles to go. And I thought, oh God, I didn't think I could necessarily finish it. But now this is, hope this works, this is a spoiler alert. So in case you haven't read it or haven't seen, I did it! I'm not looking at my script at all, so I need to get back to this. But yeah, it was, this is real emotion. I was so excited on this last day to get to Katahdin. Katahdin is a 5,000 feet mountain. It's not particularly huge. It was quite difficult. But what it meant was I could get home and get back to my wife, which I was really looking forward to doing, obviously. So let's move on and start the presentation. I've got to stop doing this, by the way. Okay. The Appalachian Trail, or the Appalachian Trail, as all the people who were on the trail would tell me. You can't call it the Appalachian Trail. Right, the Appalachian Trail. Let's just get a few things quickly out of the way because you need some facts and figures. The facts and figures are, it's 2185 miles, actually 2185.3 miles. If you draw a straight line between Mount Katahdin in Maine and Springer Mountain in Georgia, it's 1,114 miles. So they took us the scenic route in many ways. We went round, up, over mountains. We went over, or just near the top of over 900 mountains in that period of time. We went across 14 states, and I won't name them, but they start in Georgia and they finish in Maine. And it was amazing to see these places. They estimate that we took 5 million footsteps. 5 million footsteps is quite a few to do. It felt a lot more than that because sometimes when I'm walking uphill, I'm really staggering and getting a foot at a time. It was very, very tough. There are 2 to 3 million visitors a year, which is quite good, so you're always running into people. But it does, when it gets into a wilderness, it gets more and more, you just don't see anybody at all. And I did go entire days without seeing anybody at all. It goes over 6 national parks and 8 national forests. And since it started in 1937, the first through hike was in 1948 by a guy called Earl Schaefer. And there have been less than 15,000 complete through hikes, of which about 12,000 are what I did, which was from beginning to end in the same year. But the one that I'm most proud of is that while 50% of the people who do this hike are in their 20s, less than 500 people of all the people who have finished are in their 60s, and I'm 62 this month, so that's an achievement. And I found out that so far about 2,500 started at Springer Mountain in Georgia earlier this year, and by Harper's Ferry, which is kind of the halfway point, although in fact it's not halfway, but kind of the halfway point, 1,017 recorded that. So we lost half of them straight away. And then when I signed in to complete a week last Monday, I was number 699 completing. So they reckon about 1 in 4 complete, and so I was particularly happy with that. Now, it is not, of course, just about the facts and figures. It is absolutely darn gorgeous. Now, this picture, how do you see? Oh, it looks okay. This is the kind of iconic picture of McAfee Knob. And it looks like I'm sitting there and about to fall over. In fact, it's much safer than it looks. And the reason I cut it that way was because there are about 10 people right next to me on the rock. So this is my picture. It's the one I wanted. After Katahdin, this is the one I really wanted to see when I was sitting out there. Now, I don't know if he's still here. One guy, because the tradition for this apparently is to do it naked, which I've got to tell you would not have been a good thing for me to do. So I wasn't going to do that, but I know a lot of kids did. And Naked Hiker Day is a specific day. It's the 21st of June, and anybody going through McAfee Knob on the 21st of June would have been a naked hiker, which, trust me, would not have been very nice. Now this one is called Sunfish Pond. It's at 1,379 feet. It's incredibly calm, incredibly quiet, and in fact I think I posted a video on my blog as well. It's a glacial pond, and you see so many of these ponds high up in the hills, and they're always calm, and I just absolutely loved how these were set up. This is a glacial pond created in the last ice age. Absolutely beautiful. The mouse keeps moving, I have no idea why. Okay, let's keep my hand there. Right, now this was one of my favourite days. This is coming out of Palmerton, and this is a picture of a path. This is what I expected the Appalachian Trail to be. But basically, you're in the woods 90% of the time, and it's called the Green Tunnel. But every now and then you get out, and I remember this day very, very well. This is a Superfund site where they had pollution, and the whole mountain was wiped clear of vegetation. As you can see, it's growing back really, really well. But it was so beautiful to walk along here, and this was about a 2 or 3 mile trek along there, and I was all by myself that day, and frankly, I couldn't have been happier. It was just absolutely wonderful there. This one, we hiked with a woman called Trillium, and I'm going to come back to her later because she was an interesting character. This was on Baldpate Mountain in Maine, and Trillium took this picture because she saw the pond there, and she thought it would kind of catch the reflection and so on. Those, just to my left as you look at the picture, those cairns, you're guided through the trail by these white blazes, which are marks on trees. But when you're in the mountains, when you're above the tree line, these things are called cairns, and they're piles of stones, and you just go past them and you follow them. And this was just another glorious, glorious day. I don't know whether any of you followed the blog, but if you did, you'll notice that the weather was superb most of the time. Unfortunately for the last day wasn't superb. But this was an absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous day. Great light and great views. And as I said, we're in the Green Tunnel nearly all the time. I'll see if I can do this here. We're in the Green Tunnel nearly all the time. And this was coming out of the Green Tunnel. I consider showing the next picture here, because the next picture was taken on that path, and it was looking down into the valley where we were above the cloud in the valley. And we did that a lot. You know, you're hiking along, and it's sunny out there, and you look down, and there's a cloud, and it's just tremendous to see. Absolutely beautiful. And now this one looks dangerous, and I always told my wife none of these things were very dangerous, but this one really was. I was hanging on for dear life. Actually, you can see from my face I'm struggling a bit here because the wind was blowing terribly. It was in the White Mountains, and but it's a beautiful, beautiful spot. Now this one, it's a bit of an experiment. See how this works now. This is a video, and I'm not sure you're going to be able to hear it, but we'll have to see. See if it works.
Mile 21:45, 40 miles short of Katahdin. We've seen Katahdin today from another lake. Can't see it now. But it's so peaceful. The sun only in there, so I might cut out the video just when I get there. I don't think they're going there, but I'm thinking.
And this was really, really cold. I can't tell you how cold it felt. It was a beautiful sunny day, but these things are high up, as I say, and it was just remarkably cold. And I didn't go swimming much towards the end of the hike because it just got down to, they said, these lakes were as low as 45 degrees sometimes. So you really don't want to get too caught in those. So there's a couple of pictures to start with. We'll obviously be doing some more pictures. And I don't want to make it just a trip about the pictures, but it's my adventures, I guess, really. So why do this at all? back in the UK, I was a big reader of Bill Bryson, the American writer. He's a travel writer generally, and I read everything he did. He used to do things for magazines. And then in 1996 or 1997, and that was always ominous, seeing that bear there, by the way. He brought this book out, A Walk in the Woods, and some of you may have read it. It is amazingly interesting, it's amazingly funny, and it has absolutely nothing to do with walking the trail at all. You know, you've got to decide when you go and do the trail, do you want to spend 6 months stinking like a hobo, like a homeless person? There's no air conditioning, as you can imagine. It was never hot enough and it was never cold enough. I had all sorts of bad nights weather-wise, and you eat complete rubbish most of the time. And so you have to recognise that's what you've got to do. So when I read this, what I was trying to do was, I was thinking to myself, how amazing that this book comes out and it tells me about this Appalachian Trail. I'd never heard about the Appalachian Trail. I lived in the UK at the time, so I put it on my bucket list. It was one of those things that I thought to myself, I'd love to do that. It's going through America, seeing the different states in America, seeing the different people. And believe me, you see some really different people. Oh my God. There's a lot of interbreeding in this country, I'll tell you. And yeah, I'm not telling you where. Yeah, I know. But it was amazing to me that you can get the chance to go through the whole country, go over the mountains, meet tons of people, and see the changing seasons, meet the people. And let me tell you, once we crossed the Mason-Dixon line, I never heard country music again. No, it was amazing. It was all country music before, and then no country music at all. So I read this book, and I thought, it's got to go on my bucket list, thing I really want to do. And the bucket list is probably that list of things you're never going to do, really. I lived in the UK at the time. I then moved to America in 2005. I met and married my wife, and then we moved down to Florida, and we started the business. And then in December last year, we got an offer for the business, and my wife said, if you're ever going to do it, this is the time. And I'm 62 this month, so we decided to sell the business, and we decided to do the Walk in the Woods. So I was kind of committed in many ways, and I thoroughly enjoyed reading this book and many, many others about it, because this is a fascinating trail and everybody has a different take upon it. Now, I call myself Mighty Blue. And the reason I'm Mighty Blue, by the way, which sounds like a bit of a show-off name, it's not meant to be. I support a soccer team in the UK. My UK friends are here, by the way. I support a soccer team in the UK called Southend United. They are completely useless. I've been supporting them since 1959 with my father, and I love them. I just love them. And for some amazing reason, in the 1990s, they decided to call themselves, or the fans decided to call them, or refer to them as the Mighty Blues. So I thought, I'm a lousy hiker, and for those of you who don't know, I'd never ever hiked in my life, never slept in the tent until I slept in the tent at the top of Springer Mountain. So I thought to myself, I'm going to call myself Mighty Blue. But becoming Mighty Blue needed something. I wasn't comfortable, and about a week before the whole trail was going to start, I needed something to kick me onto that next level to become Mighty Blue. And amazingly, this did it. Did you see the way he polished my head with his hands like this? I mean, some of you guys are probably used to this, but for me, it was a new thing. I had long, long hair, and to do that was strange. But I told Diane this afterwards. I felt incredibly calm afterwards. It was almost as if I'd stopped being Steve and I was Mighty Blue and I was ready to go. And these trail names are surprisingly important, and I wanted to name myself. And in fact, I did name 2 other people, of which I'm very, very proud. One guy, he knew everything about everything. And there was not a single subject you could talk to him about, he didn't know about it. And I was hiking along one day thinking, we've got to give him a name. His name was Greg, but Greg wasn't good enough. So I went back to that evening and I said, I've got a great name for you. He said, what's that? I said, it's because you know so much. I don't think you got the English humour really there. Because you know so much, I think we should call you Wiki, after Wikipedia. And he thought, that's great, I like that. So Wiki became Wiki. That was a good one. The other one was up in New York sometime. I was staying at a shelter one night, and there was this really nice kid, a Japanese kid. He couldn't speak hardly any English at all, and I can speak very little Japanese, as you can imagine. So we're talking the way in which you talk to somebody who can't speak your language, and a few words. Turns out this kid lived in Queens. He worked in the Fukushima plant when in the nuclear plant when they had the tidal wave and the earthquake. So, and I thought to myself, will he be offended? So what happened was he got out that day. He was told he had to leave his town straight away, went to Tokyo, and his family sent him to, I think it was Queens or the Bronx, one of the 2 places in New York. And so there he was, and he decided to hike the trail. So I named him Tsunami. And I thought to myself, he's going to be really upset with that. But no, he liked it, because the next day I went to some trail magic. And then those of you who don't know, trail magic is where you kind of walk out the woods, people give you food, water, booze sometimes, pizza. It's tremendous. And I said, I was sitting down having some trail magic one day, and I said, who's been through? And started giving me some names, and he said, and a young Japanese lad called Tsunami. So he accepted it. So I think kudos to me. So he loved it. Right, now, one of the big things about this is the people you meet in the woods. The people you meet in the woods are terrific. I would never have met some of these people in real life, and frankly, there's not a single one of them I wouldn't have wanted to meet. I like them. I pretty much like them all. I had a few arguments with one guy, but apart from that, the people you want to meet in the woods, I'd like to introduce you to Chip, who is the world's unluckiest hiker. I'm sorry about the flashing. I don't know why it's doing that. Now, Chip, I was about to point to my screen, but that won't help you much. Chip is the guy on the right-hand side. The guy on the left-hand side is a guy called Viking, who was hilarious. And the guy in the middle is Jesse James. I have no idea who the girl is, but there is a girl in that tent, and I'm going to tell you about her later. She was ill. Now, Chip, Chip's amazing. I think anybody who's hiked the trail at all, has done any miles, you go in as a person and take all your phobias and your fears with you. But what you do, you go into a shelter, it may be mile, 894. And you're sitting with somebody who's also done 894 miles. And there's a mutual respect there, because you know you've done these things together. So we all got on well, everybody got on well. And Chip is a 19-year-old boy. He's a really, really, really charming guy. And he was called Chip, and I thought it might be his real kind of American name, it's an American type name. It's called Chip because, and I'll show you a picture later of a shelter. He came to a shelter. Shelters are disgusting places, full of mice, full of rats, full of spiders. You really don't want to go in one, okay? People put their sleeping bags down, and it's just a mess. He didn't have a tent with him at the time, but he did have a sleeping bag. So he decided, because it was raining, he was going to sleep underneath this shelter, okay? Which, believe me, is where they all congregate, okay? So he also thought it'd be a very clever thing to go to bed with a bag of trail mix, okay? And he falls asleep. Anyway, and bear in mind, he's underneath this shelter, which has about that much clearance. Suddenly, he's woken in the middle of the night by a mouse biting his back. He sits bolt upright, smashes his head, and chips his tooth. So that is why he became Chip. And even worse, it gets much worse for Chip, Because even worse, the next day he had to leave the trail for 2 or 3 days to go to a wedding, and he made a point of grinning in every single shot because he ruined every single photograph because of his chipped tooth. So that wasn't good. Then, this is the next thing that happened to Chip. He was in a park in Pennsylvania, and Pennsylvania was a great place for parks. You could order takeout pizza, and they would deliver it there to you. You'd have an 18-inch pizza or whatever it is, and we'd all order tons of them. And Chip was in there, and they have these pavilions where you can sleep. Well, you're not meant to, but most of us did. So Chip's lying there one night, and a rabid bat fell on his head, and he woke up. It was tangled in his hair. He had a few cuts in his face, and the bat crapped on him. So he had all sorts of stuff going on. So the poor kid had to be treated for rabies, and that's when I first met Chip, and I was feeling bad for him. When we got to Franconia Notch in New Hampshire, he was struck by lightning. And I'll come back to this in a minute. And soon after being struck by lightning and just getting a few marks on his arm, he succumbed to Lyme disease, which is a deer tick bite. And I can tell you, Chip was still hiking, and he was in Maine. He was still hiking. He kept a smile on his face. He never lost his smile. And one other thing about Chip, he carried a guitar with him. He carried it for 1,600 and something miles. I never, ever heard him play it. Ever. He said, I never took it out. I'll tell you, he's a great kid. Now, this one, I love this guy. Also 19 years old, Yeti Legs and Tumbles. Yeti Legs was Chip's mate, and this was a picture they were taken earlier. Chip and Yeti Legs decided when it got so hot that what they wanted to wear on the trail was a pair of underpants and their backpack. So Chip had this common sense to wear black ones, which weren't see-through. Yeti Legs had grey ones, which were seriously see-through, okay? And he wore them all the time and virtually nothing else. Before, obviously, he's got a shirt here, which I never saw again. But what was great about Yeti Legs, when we got to New York, and apparently it's not against the law, he went into town, had his photograph taken with a naked cowboy in New York. And he went into bars, he was ordering drinks. He's 19 years of age and never once asked for his ID. He had this huge beard, which was 3 times the length of this. He was a great guy. And the guy with him, Tumbles, was a 38-year-old, there's no picture here, he was a 38-year-old male nurse, and when I had one of my injuries, he made it his mission to look after me. He was terrific. You know, these kids were just absolutely extraordinary. Now this one, there's no picture here either. Well, there is a picture, but not of the person. Triple P, the purple polish painter. Now, it's amazing the things you would do when you're on the trail, because we were sitting down at breakfast one morning, somewhere, I don't know, I think it was Connecticut. And there were a bunch of people there, and the purple polish painter, and the name gives it away a little bit, she wanted to tag people, and she wanted to tag them with purple nail polish. Now, in real life, I would think, don't be stupid, I'm not going to do that. But I don't know how I said it, because I ended up, and do you know how difficult it is to get rid of nail polish? I had it on there for about 3 weeks, it just would not come off. But this is an English sign, which my English friends will know, and I thought I'd let her do that for me. But, you know, it's totally fine for life in the woods. Now, my team. My team, at the end, where I was hiking with them quite a bit, mainly because of security, really, because it got quite dangerous. A guy called Lighter Knot, T-Bird and Trillium. Now, this is our team together. Actually, this is, on the left, obviously, is me with this stupid beard. In front, the woman in front is T-Bird, and the guy at the back is Lighter Knot. Now, Trillium was the biggest pain I've ever met in my life, and she happened to be with us all the time. She was the type of woman, if you ask her the time, she would tell you how to make a watch. I mean, she was just awful. And one day we were slack packing, and we were going to meet a guy called Shepherd, really nice fella. And he came up on the trail. He said, I've left the stuff in the car, the directions to the car, go to the bridge, go half a mile down the road, turn right, you'll get to the car. The others all called up. He repeated it, go to the bridge, half a mile down the road, turn right, you get to the car. So I then repeated back to him what it was. So I knew the way there. We got there. I went to the bridge, turned right. She said, "Where are you going?" I said, I'm going to get our stuff in the car. She said, "Well, I didn't hit that. That's not what he said. You don't go there. You go left here." She said, "Steve, you know, Mighty Blue," she said, in fact, "Mighty Blue, people may listen to you in your life, but I'm not one of those people. I don't listen to people. I don't follow blindly." She said to me, "You should learn to listen more." I said, "You know what? You are absolutely right. You can tell me as many ways as you like to go, but I'm still going this way. What about the rest of you?" And she followed me, of course. But she was such a pain. Now, this is me and Leiden. This was in Maine. Beautiful picture. All these beautiful lakes in Maine. They're spectacular. This was another glorious day, even though it's quite cool because it was quite breezy. And the beard is getting even worse by now, as you can see, and all that sort of stuff. The thing I learned from Leiden, by the way, he's a gun owner. He's got over 100 guns, and we had a few chats about that. That was funny. But he taught me how to say Georgia. Apparently, you say Georgia, Georgia. And we kept trying to say it, Georgia. And he said to me, "You don't sound anything like it." So he was trying to do a British accent, and that wasn't working terribly well either. So I mainly like hikes with Leiden. And this is a picture on the last morning before we went up to Katahdin. Not surprisingly, Trillium had decided to go up early with her boyfriend who turned up for the day. So they went up ahead of us. And so this was mainly the team that hiked together. But I was very, 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 very pleased to be hiking with these guys. It gave me a lot of security. Now, the last group of people I met, we used to call these potheads in my day. And I can tell you, there are quite a lot of drugs on the Appalachian Trail. I didn't touch them myself. In fact, one evening I was in a park in New York, and one of the kids said to me, "Mighty Blue, we're going to have a safety meeting." Oh. A safety meeting? Oh, well, you understood it, didn't you? You knew what it was. Right, well, the safety meeting was exactly what the young lady thinks. They were all sitting around smoking dope, so that was amazing. But what I would say about these kids, they were all of them, to a man or woman, they were all articulate. They were food gatherers. They'd turn up at camp every night. They'd always light a fire, which saved me the need to light a fire. They'd pull everything out of their pockets they'd picked up on the way, and they cooked virtually everything. They knew what they could eat, and they knew what would kill them. And they always stank. I mean, absolutely stank. Because they didn't have much money, because they were spending it on dope, I guess. So they didn't go into town, and they didn't shower. One guy I was hiking behind, he was 3.5 weeks since he'd had his last shower. His clothes could have walked by themselves. It was amazing. But one thing about it, I don't know how these kids fit into real life, but I tell you, on the trail, they are perfect. They are really, really perfect. They were so respectful all the time. And I don't approve, but I tell you what, I loved them. They were great kids. Now, three other kids quickly. Karate Kid, loved him. All I can really say about Karate Kid is that he was so enthusiastic about everything. He's 29 years old. He looks about 15, doesn't he, apart from the beard. He needed to raise some money to do this, took a job, made the money to do it. His ambition was to ride up Katahdin on a moose. Okay. It was never going to happen. I tell you, it didn't put him off at all. He was looking for moose all the time. He said, "I'm going to saddle him up and ride him up Katahdin." And I tell you, I promise you, I loved him. This one is a little bit more serious, and Hermes was a really lovely person. He was a retired medic. He was 42 years old. He'd retired at 39, and he said to me, "I don't care what your politics are about war," he said, "but America learns so much medically when it goes to war. And it makes a lot of sense. There's an exponential improvement in how we treat people." And he was telling me what he did one night. We were all sitting around together, and he was really bent out of shape. He was part of the limb recovery unit. The limb recovery unit was one of these people who would take, a body would come in, the limb would come in maybe half hour, 20 minutes later, and nowadays they can save them. Perhaps they couldn't before, but they were so successful, they were sending home people in a bad state. So his job, I kid you not, and he was tearing up while he was telling this, his job for the last 2 years he was in there, he had to decide whether or not to save a person, which, when you think about it, is extraordinary. And so that was sad. Lastly, Stardust. Stardust was somebody I met on the trail. She was the young kid, the young girl, in that tent we saw in the picture with Chip earlier on. She was sick that day. And a few days later, I saw her on the trail, and she was bawling her eyes out. She was crying her eyes out. She said, I want to go home. I'm done. I can never do this again. So I talked to her for about 20 minutes, like a grandfather, which I'm probably about the right sort of age for it. And she said, well, where are you camping tonight? You know, because I'm scared. She was frightened. She was by herself. She'd lost her team. She was really worried about everything. So I said, well, look, you're going to regret it so much if you go home. We're not that far from the end. You know, we were in Vermont at the time. We still had about 600 miles to go. But it just doesn't seem long, you know. So she said, well, I said, I'm going to be at such and such shelter. So she said, do you mind if I camp with you? I said, that's fine. So later on that day, she turned up at the shelter. She said, thanks so much for talking me off the ledge. And I'm so pleased to be able to show you, this is a picture from Katahdin a few days after I summited. And look at how pleased she looks. She had a beautiful day for it as well. So there's some of the people I met. I could have named 50 people. They've all got their stories, but they're great kids. Now, critters. When I went out on this trail, frankly, I was scared stiff because I didn't know. You know, you're walking along and there's no one around. We're in the Smoky Mountains, and someone says there's tons of bears here. Well, with my wife, assuming I'm going to be ravaged, or not ravaged, killed by a bear, I'm watching out for them all the time. So you're walking along the trail, I'm looking for these dark shapes, and there's movements and so on. But once you get used to it, and a snake or a bear goes past you, you realise this is where they look, this is where they live. I'm in their space now. They couldn't care less about you. They just wanted to get away from you. They had no interest in you. You're not on their menu at all. Snakes are the same. I got close to a few snakes, a bit too close a few times, and they don't want to know. So I was worried about it before I left it with the animals, but now when you see them, it's such a safe thing to do. So we had squirrels, chipmunks, and mice. I told you, the mice, all the shelters are full of mice, and they're really funny actually. One guy, there was this red barn, and it's a 2-story shelter, the only one. It was built for a movie, and so it's about the height of this. And he told me, he said, I was lying there in my sleeping bag, and I could see this mouse up there. He's kind of looking out, and suddenly he fell, and said, I can see him getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and he landed there. Oh dear, I would have had a heart attack. So there were mice all the time. In the end, you get used to it. They crawl over you. It's not the end of the world. Squirrels shocked me. Squirrels. I see more squirrels where I live in my gated community than I saw in the first 300 miles of the trail. I saw I think it was about 60 miles of squirrel. It was just ludicrous. And then chipmunks all over the place, always after your food, kept breaking into the bags, but they are what they are. Deer. Now, deer are okay. They're kind of pretty, and I must have seen 20 or 30 of them, and I've got a picture, but it's a deer, you know. They are what they are. They're incredibly friendly. They'll come very, very close to you, but you really should go nowhere near a deer. And the reason you should go nowhere near a deer is because of ticks. And this is a tick. I tell you what, they are horrible. They're tiny. I mean, they're really, really tiny. And they get on you, and they embed themselves in you, and they bite and whatever. And you have to get them off within, I think, 24 hours, or they're going to give you, there's a good chance of giving you Lyme disease. One day I found 5 or 6 on me. Oh, So I had these things, I had to keep pulling them out. And a lady said to me, the way to get rid of these things, spray from the knees downward with off. Spray your boots, spray your socks, you'll be fine. So I never saw another one after I started spraying. So that was good. But they're pretty kind of vile things. Lyme disease, as I say, is the fear for most of us, and I didn't get that. Now, the big two. The big two, of course. Well, no, sorry, I pulled the wrong one over. Snakes are not the big two, actually. Snakes are fine. These are black snakes. This was quite a long one, and that was a bit of a surprise. But all it does, it surprises you. But this one is a timber rattler, and I videoed this.
Snake, the large, you can hear it rattling away. Tucked underneath that, what do you call it, that rock. Get a little bit closer, not too closer.
Did you notice how technical I was there? It was tucked underneath that, what do you call it, rock. That was it, yeah. It was tucked underneath a rock. And I was about to step on it, because it was on the trail, and I took a detour about 6 feet round. Someone said to me, you shouldn't do that, because normally their mate is about 6 feet away. I didn't know that. I mean, who knew? So, that lovely little thing. Now, the big two, as far as I was concerned, are bears and moose. Never seen a bear in my life, other than at zoos. I'd never seen a moose in my life. Now, you need to watch closely this. Some of you have probably seen this, but this is a video of, I'd not seen a single bear at all. Everybody else was seeing them. I hadn't seen one. Been through the Smokies, not a bear. Been through Shenandoah, quite a bit of Shenandoah, not a bear. Everybody else in the group had seen a bear. So I suddenly going along the trail by myself, and I hear a noise. And they make a lot of noise, these things. And firstly, I was frightened, obviously. So I took my camera out to take a picture, and I thought, they're coming down. So I switched it onto video. Watch the centre right bit. Watch them jumping down. There's 4 of them. And another one. It was like a breakout at a jail. It was amazing. It was just incredible to see, but they ran away. They always run away. And then about 20 minutes later, I was getting some water out of a stream, and suddenly heard this rustle, and this bear came on the path 20 feet from me and just kind of waddled away, thankfully. But they're just not interested in you at all. The other big deal, these are amazing to see, huge things, these moose. And look at the antlers on that. And we were walking down the trail, and we suddenly saw it right in the middle of the trail. Once again, it's not interested in us, but we were really interested in it. And it's just a beautiful, beautiful animal. In all, I saw 9 bears. Actually, I saw 11, but 2 of them were in the zoo in New York City, so kind of doesn't count. And I saw 7 moose, 3 on the trail and 4 while we were driving. We were being taken somewhere. We went down a place called Moose Alley somewhere in Maine, and the girl said, you're bound to see some moose this morning. Suddenly, 2 big moose came out and ran straight across the road. And they say if your car hits the moose, your car is going to be much more damaged in most cases. These are huge things, absolutely huge. Hiking itself, I haven't really talked much about hiking. And when Diane and I were getting ready to go, I was quite relaxed, I was quite calm about it all. We flew to Atlanta, and then we went to a place called Dahlonega. Beautiful place, by the way. Any of you ever been there? It's a beautiful place. And I was looking through a book, and somebody articulated exactly what you need. You've got to want to do this more than anything else you want to do in the summer. I love going to the beach. I love Anna Maria Island. I love going out to dinner with my wife. I love spending time with friends. But this was the one thing I really, really wanted to do. And I can tell you, I've come back, it's knocked me out. You know, I've fallen over so many times. But I wanted to do this more than anything else in the summer. And I think it summed up, you know, my feelings. And so I'm very happy I did it. Now, white blazes on the trail, I've been trying to think myself through this. A metaphor for life, and it may be a little bit dramatic to say it's a metaphor for life. There are 165,000 white blazes on the trail. What they are they're a 2-inch by 6-inch stripe on a tree. And you'd be amazed how important that blaze is to you. Because you're hiking along and then you don't see one. You think, have I come the right place? And I went off the trail so many times because I went the wrong way. But, and I'm just going to show you a couple. This is what a white blaze is. You're walking along and you see this thing. It makes you feel good about everything. They direct you. And it's, it's really important to see these things, because if you don't see them, you're lost. You're in the woods and you're lost. You've just got nowhere to go. So you have to retrace your steps to the last white blaze you've seen. So there's a few other pictures of white blazes, and they're not just on trees. This one's a nice one. This is in New Jersey. I don't know if you can see it, but there's you can see it there. It's on a rock, which probably means I wouldn't fall over the side. But it just guides you through the path. And then two quick ones. This was at the top of a mountain. There was a spruce forest, beautiful, lovely white blaze in the distance. And you always feel terribly calm when you see these things. And this one has got a double white blaze. And a double white blaze means you've got two alternatives, which you really don't want. So you can go one way or the other. So you make a choice of which way you go. So the trail is a narrow path, and you're led by these blazes. And you're always you try to stay on the right path. You can either think of God, or you can think of your general moral code of how you live your life. But you want to stay on the right path the whole time. And frankly, the trail goes down, and it goes up, and it goes flat. And you can choose what you're going to do. You can choose if you want to go to the right of that blaze or to the left of that blaze. But you've got to go near that blaze to stay on that right path. And you have to negotiate your way around everything. And it is so reassuring. It's almost... anybody who's ever done the trail will know what I mean by this, and it's very difficult for me to put across. But they are your guide, and you just need to see them. You need to see them so much, it becomes a massive part of your day. There we are. It is incredibly important. Now, my hiking turned this fat bloke to a slightly thinner bloke. And this was an early picture. This was in Hot Springs. As you can see, I was a little bit chunky at the time. We had to write our name on this thing. I was starting to lose a bit of weight, and I promise you, I was eating as much as I could possibly eat. I mean, that shouldn't have happened. But see how that... We have to go back again. So I have to move on, sorry. This way, right. I was eating as much as I could possibly eat, and as you can see, I'm really, really trying hard there. Look at that plate. There were 4 eggs on there, by the way. All over easy, fantastic. But you burn between 6,000 and 8,000 calories a day, so you've got to eat so much food. It's almost impossible to eat the food. And I was eating as much as I could. Diane was sending me packs of food, but she kept sending me healthy food, which I didn't need. I needed a lot of fat. And so I went to a Mexican restaurant by myself one night, and I took this selfie, and this is when Diane got pretty upset and bent out of shape about how much weight I'd lost. And you can see I have lost quite a bit. I'm trying with the beer calories to keep that up, but I was losing weight so fast. And it really sounded the alarm. So I started at 245 pounds in weight. I went down to 196 when I came back, so I lost 49 pounds. And since I've been back, even though she's been feeding me relentlessly, I've lost another 2 pounds. So my metabolism is kind of speeded up, I guess. But we were trying so hard to get different types of food. Towards the end, and there was a mistake in the paper today, one of the articles about me, but I was eating, in the last week or two, a whole jar of peanut butter every single day because I could not get enough fat, and I would have 5, 6, 7 Snickers. So what I would do in the morning, I'd get up, 3 or 4 packs of oatmeal, protein powder, kind of kiddie sort of juicy sort of fruit put in there to get rid of the disgusting taste of the protein powder. Have that. I'd have 5 or 6 Snickers. I'd stop for lunch. I'd have a wrap with tons of mayonnaise, and I mixed it with mustard as well. Not a good combination. So mayonnaise and mustard. I then had, salami, 600 calories worth of salami, shove that down my face, another 4 or 5 Snickers in the afternoon, then I'd have rice or pasta in the evening, and I was continuing to lose weight. So a very, very inventive friend of mine, Sam, he came up with this, and this became a firm favourite of a lot of us. This is a wrap. It's got a thick layer of peanut butter, a layer of Nutella, which I'd never had in my life before, 2 Snickers and 2 Butterfingers. I think you'll agree, this could be a winning combination. I'm thinking of marketing it, actually. Now, there is no getting away from it. There's no getting away from it. We stank on the trail. And one of the reasons we stank, we lived in these disgusting shelters. A guy, by the way, the guy with the red jacket waving, he's Wiki, the man who knew everything. And it was very, very dirty. The whole place was dirty. The mice around all the time, the droppings all over the place. So we knew it wasn't good. And shelter life is pretty tough. And then this was at the top of Mount Killington in Vermont, another shelter. I mean, that looks inviting, doesn't it? I mean, it was, once again, pretty vile. There were tons of mice in that shelter that night. And people were 4 to 7 days between showers. And one day, I was hiking out of somewhere in Virginia, and I was hiking with a really nice guy called Digger. And Digger was a really funny guy, and he taught me a lot about hiking. And we had a long conversation. We're chatting, and I'm right close up behind him. I thought, oh my God, he stinks. So I backed off about 15 yards, but it was me. In fact, it got worse. I mean, he'd been toning it down a bit. I tell you, it was awful. And no, we just really, really stank. And one of my memories of and I will never forget this, every single night you go into your tent at hike at midnight. Hike at midnight is when it gets dark, and you put this headlamp on. And I can always remember this, and I'll remember it for the rest of my days. I take my shirt off, and the light's on, and so your shirt's over your head. You put your head down, and you can smell it. I mean, the stale sweat was awful. It was just getting worse and worse and worse. And then you get in, if you hitch a lift in town, you'd get into a car, and the driver would surreptitiously wind their window down because he knew the smell. In fact, when I met my wife, when I came back from the trail, I was dressed in, quite smartly I thought, in my pants, which I wore every single day, one of 2 shirts, and I wore a grey fleece, really nice grey fleece. Well, I thought it was nice anyway. And she said, oh my God, is that you? I said, it could be. She said, what? She said, what are you wearing? This, you know. So I realised that I'd lost my pillow about a month before. I'd been using my fleece as a pillow for about a month, not had it washed at all. I now think about it, it was awful as well. So you do smell a heck of a lot. Oh, sorry, this is another nice little place where we slept. As you can see, the mattresses are covered in plastic for all sorts of good reasons, I'm sure. And it's just a mess. The whole place is a mess, and we pretty much stank all the time. I'm trying to think what's next now. Oh yeah. If you've ever done this, the thing about the trail, the defining difficulties of the trail are either rocks or roots, or even worse, a combination of the 2 of them. And you look at some of these, how difficult it is to do this, because there's part of the trail, there's the rocks and roots you've got to walk up, and that is a lot more vertical than it looks. And if you get any rain on them at all, you're going to slip, particularly the roots. They were very, very, very dangerous. Next one was in Pennsylvania, and look at, it's almost as if the Pennsylvania Appalachian Trail Club chose the sharpest, nastiest, vilest rocks you could ever get. And they smashed up my boots completely. And they were so difficult. I hated Pennsylvania. I'm sure it's a great state. I hated it. Now, this one, and some of you may have heard this one. This is great. It's a bad picture, but this is me at Mahoosic Notch. Mahoosic Notch is full of, I guess, RV-size boulders. And you've got to thread your way either under, over, around these boulders. It took us, it's a 1 mile part of the trail, and I normally do about 2 miles an hour. It took us 3 hours to get through Mahoosic Notch. There were 4 of us. The girls were useless at it, so it was what it was. But they were. So we pushed all our stuff through, but that was a great place to be, but the rocks were really fierce there. And this, I think, last one has got Now, that's nice. Look at that. There's nowhere to put your foot. So you're going to slip on these things. So I was holding the trees that I was going past, or in some cases I'd pull myself up by the roots and hopefully get through without falling over. Now, these are actually just an excuse to show some of my favourite pictures, because one of the things, and I think I tried to highlight it when I was on my Facebook page, was the incredible light you get in the forest. Look at that. These are real pictures taken with an iPhone, and yet the light was just shining through. I just absolutely love these spots. And this one, that's a bit of a beam me up Scotty moment. You know, it's just shining straight out and lighting us up all the way through. This is very similar, but this is a slightly different path. And the light would change, obviously, as the day went on, but the best light was very early morning or late at night. This one's late at night, or late in the evening, rather, and I just love those. And the last one is another beam me up Scotty moment, which I took, actually, just out of camp one morning. And the other, oh, sorry, there's another one, yeah. Another pretty picture with light. Now, oh, God, sorry. I should have counted how many there were, but as you can see, there's a lot of light anyway. The other amazing thing, which I've never seen before, when you get to New Hampshire and Maine, the colours change. We thought we were going to miss it because there was nothing happening. They just weren't changing at all. And then one night, we had a cold night. As soon as we had a cold night, it changed overnight. And so these next four, and once again, I make no apologies for showing them. Look at that. And that picture there is Mount Katahdin in the background. That's the one we went up at the end. But that was from Abol Bridge. Beautiful, beautiful view. And then this is the top of one of the mountains. They've created a path through it, and look at those beautiful colours there. You know, we were so privileged to go through it that time of year as well. And they've changed just like that. It was just remarkable how quickly it did it. And then the petals would fall, and so there were pinks and blues and oranges and all sorts of stuff, and great, great colours. Now, that's hiking, and my Appalachian trials, I had. Day one, my wife dropped me off at Amicaloda State Park, and I had to hike up from this park, so 7 miles before we even start the trail. So I got to the top, and I thought, oh God, I'm exhausted. So I thought, I'd never camped, I'd never put a tent up, so it was really day one for me. So I signed in, because there's a book you sign, and I've taken my pictures of me by the sign. This is the southern terminus of the Appalachian Trail. Took one step to my right, smashed my head into the overhanging branch of a tree. I thought I was done. I thought it was one of my 5 million steps was going to be the killer. But fortunately, I got over that. But then there's a story they used to say, "Man bites dog" in the UK. It's an English expression, I guess. I was hiking out of Petersburg, which is in Virginia, and I saw a hiker on the trail. And lots of the hikers hike with their dogs. God knows why, but they do. And I must have lifted my poles up. I said, "Hiya!" The dog jumped up and bit me on the leg. It must know that I don't like dogs, but it bit me. I thought, oh my God. And it tore a hole. It didn't seem to give me any blood or anything like that, so I kind of ignored it. And the guy said to me, "Well, he's never bitten anybody before." I said, "Yeah, of course he hasn't." So I wander on. Next day, I'm feeling a bit ropey, a bit rough, rather. A couple of days later, I'm feeling worse and worse and worse, and my shin is really starting to hurt. And it's getting red. So I decided, unusually, I listened to my body, and I decided to go to urgent care. I went there, and they told me that I had cellulitis, which is a bacterial infection in the leg, and can be quite dangerous. So they gave me an injection in the backside and 10 days worth of antibiotics. It didn't seem to get better for a couple of days because I stayed in a motel. So I went home, went to my doctor, they did some blood tests, and turns out it didn't get to my blood, but that would have finished the hike. Fortunately, and much to my wife's disgust, I'd booked a return ticket to Virginia. So 11 days after leaving, I went back to Virginia, which was a wonderful, wonderful thing to do. Seeing straight, oh yeah. Now, these glasses are reading glasses. They cost me $2.50, I think it is. I haven't had proper glasses, so I have these progressives, for about 4 months. I was hiking along one day, and I had my bandana on, such a good look, and my hat, and I pulled them off, and I must have pulled my glasses off at the same time. And And I didn't realise, and I'm kind of looking around, can't see the glasses, and I think, I wonder if I left them back at the monument. So I backtracked a mile, and they weren't there. So I'm totally stuffed without glasses. So I had to hike pretty much all the time without glasses. If I wanted to read something, I'd do this. As I say, I can't see many of you here. I can see just about the front row. So seeing straight was, I needed to do that. Half-gallon challenge. The half-gallon challenge is just stupid. Half-gallon challenge. I mean, to give you an idea how stupid it is, none of the kids were stupid enough to do it. I put my hand up, of course. And the half-gallon challenge, firstly you have to pay for it. So I bought half a gallon of ice cream. And it's to celebrate getting halfway, which I suppose is a clue in the title. And so I took this half gallon, and that was okay. I did it in 27 minutes, not a problem at all. Hiked another 7 or 8 miles, no problem. I got to camp, got into camp, I had some pasta, and I'd done this in the past. Pasta on top of ice cream, I don't know how it works for you, but it really doesn't work for me. And about 3 o'clock one morning, I turned over in bed at night, in my sleeping bag, I went, oh dear. And then I turned over the other way and, oh my God. I had to dive out of the tent, and I was pretty bad. And I had 2 days off the trail, and I kind of explained it here. See how this works. Oh, please, that should have worked. Oh. Try one more time.
It's about 9:15, 9:20, something like that, maybe 9:30, on a Saturday morning, just out of my 2-day, wasted 2 days, having taken part stupidly in the half-gallon challenge. Never done it, but I did, so there's not too much I can do about it now. I was sick as a dog, and I'm now walking on a really nice path, taking me through to Boiling Springs, where I'm going to meet Fran and Steve Davis again. I'm kindly going to drive down and give me some gas, which is awesome. I'm now about to negotiate some cut down trees. I'm going to go through here. It's a lovely path actually, nice and gravelly. It's a really nice way to start my hike again. I felt a bit nervy this morning, I think, about the prospect of hiking again. Felt like my legs will be okay. I feel okay now. I'm really going well now. I'm only going to do 12 miles today and then get back into 20-mile days from tomorrow. But it's been good all the way back, and I will never, ever eat half a gallon of ice cream in 27 minutes.
It was horrible, I promise you, it was terrible. And now, I don't know if if any of you read the blog, I could not keep on my feet. I fell over 45 times. And I felt badly. And that's not just slipping over and putting your hand down and catching yourself. That is fully losing your feet. Turning upside down, the whole 9 yards. It was really, really unpleasant. And there were a couple of special ones. One was stupid, as most of my falls were stupid. I was in Connecticut, and there was it says, warning, the stones, the rocks on this river are not adequate for a proper crossing of the river. There's a detour of about 1.5 miles. I thought, well, I'm not going to go 1.5 miles to go across a 30-foot river. Stupid. So I start going across. I think I'm doing pretty well. I get 2/3, 3/4 of the way across. Suddenly, I'm over. And I got this injury, which needed urgent care yet again. And that lump was the size of my knee. It was just below the knee. It started to impact, and it was really, really unpleasant. And so I had urgent care, and they gave me some tablets again, so more antibiotics, I guess. That eventually has only just started to go down now. I fell loads of other times, but the most frightening fall for me was I'd called a shuttle because I was going to town, and I said, I should be 5 minutes getting down. I turned a corner, there was almost a vertical path through the rocks. Oh my God. So I've got to hurry up. So I started hurrying up, and suddenly I slipped on the rocks, and I screamed like a girl. I just fell straight forward and I screamed because I thought I was going to hit my head on the rocks. And all I got, amazingly, was this on my arm. And I can't, I mean, it's bruised, but I can't tell you how bad that fall was. I ended up literally upside down with my pack pushing onto my head. It was the most unpleasant fall. And my 45th and last fall was close to to this one, where it was a week before I went up Katahdin. I was talking to a young guy, chatting away. I left. I put my foot on a log. It just flipped straight up in the air, and I came down. And you can it's like a slow motion thing. You can see a rock right behind me. So I put my head that way, and I got literally wedged between this rock and our place, which was the log. And I tell you, I could not get out. Unfortunately, a young guy there, he had to pull me out. I was in a terrible state. And I think it was the accumulation of all these falls that really knocked the stuffing out of me. I was getting more and more tired by this time, but I fell so many times. So, what do I take away from this experience? And unfortunately, I haven't really had enough time to think about it. I've tried to think how it's worked for me. One of the things I would say, and I was afraid of doing this originally, and a pal of ours years ago, his name's Colin. He did the Camino, which is the walk in Spain, which is kind of a pilgrimage in Spain, 500 miles. I thought that'd be good for me, because the thought of doing the Appalachian Trail was worrisome to me. Animals, whether I could do it physically. But because you're afraid of something is absolutely not a reason not to do it, because I did it. At the end of the day, I did it. And so I've learned that I'm never going to be afraid of doing something anymore. If I fail, I fail, but I was happy that I did it. And when you've got limited stuff, and if you're carrying on your backpack everything you have, you realise how little you need. And I know the trail has changed since some early people did this, but the advent of smartphones allows us, if allows is the word, to not only call people, but it allows us to check our email. When you're in the woods and you're not working, you realise how much crap there is in your email. And I'm going through these things thinking, I don't need this stuff anymore. There's just stuff all the time. So you've got limited stuff, you don't need much stuff. And I'm very grateful for having learned that. But I must say, now I'm back home, I'm using all my stuff again. But, as I guess you would. And this was wonderful. The people respond so much better when you talk to them as equals, because we all have whatever we are in our real lives. When you're in the trail, you're just a hiker. You're no better, no worse than anybody else, and you're nodding your head. I know you've done this. So that's what happens. You go out there, and they meet you face to face as equals, and there's nothing better than that when you're sitting down with someone and they're prepared to share what they're doing in their life with you. It's a wonderful, wonderful thing. And this was by far the hardest thing I've ever done, both physically and mentally. The physical side of it's okay. You kind of train into it. I couldn't train for it because with an elevation gain of about 4 feet, Florida is not a great place to practice this. And one of the facts I didn't tell you, by the way, the elevation gain on the Appalachian Trail is 16 times that of Mount Everest. So it's nearly 500,000 feet elevation gain. So physically it was very, very hard. But once you do it and your legs start going, I mean, I've got the Tyrannosaurus Rex look now. My legs are huge, but I'm now weedy at the top as well. Thank you. So physically it was very, very hard, but I could have lived with that. Mentally is what really matters, because you have to get up every single day and you have to effectively do your job, which is walking 12, 13, 14 miles. And once again, I would still say that's a metaphor for life as well. You've got to do what you've got to do every single day and you've got to be right in your head to do it. I couldn't wake up in the morning and think, I don't fancy that today, because at the end of the day, I would still have had those 13 miles to do. And lastly, this was my first hike, and I will never... kind of, why would you? I mean, I've done a lot of miles, so now, please bear with me with this. I will never hike again. Never, ever. as long as I live. So, thank you very much indeed. Has anybody got any questions? The lady's asking about what the trail does, why I'm in the woods, why I'm in the city. It goes through all these forests, goes through these wildernesses, but it also goes near some towns and through some towns. And some towns are set up for hikers, and they're terrific. They're good fun, you know, they feed you, they supply you, that's good. And if you pass nearby a town, you can get a shuttle into that town, stay at a motel. And somebody said to me early on, it was a good thing, and I think it's something I'm glad I learned. He said that you should kind of look at it as a 3 or 4 day adventure broken up by a visit into town every now and then. I mean, some kids could not do that at all, so that's why they were going 3 or 4 weeks without a shower. But by and large, you pass near towns. I wasn't in New York City, it was actually in New York State, not in New York City, and the zoo was in New York State as well. But you don't go anywhere near any big cities. But the kids decided, because they were walking so fast, they could do 30-mile days easily. So I would never get ahead of them, but they were doing these long days, and they were still going into the city, having 2 or 3 days there. It was great.
Which state did you like the best? 14 states.
I would say New Hampshire and Maine, which was good. And the reason it was good, because this was all about the journey for me, but for the last 300 or 400 miles, it was just about the destination. I so wanted that picture. So the fact that New Hampshire and Maine became great allowed me to really, really enjoy the whole thing at the end. Hey. Would I consider being on Survivor? Absolutely not. Why would you? You know, but I'm not a hiker, as I said to you. So I'm just a regular guy who doesn't hike. I just happen to have hiked.
Steve, are you going to be here for a while?
Yeah.
Okay. It's 8 o'clock.
Okay. Okay. So, no more questions? Thank you very much indeed.